Okay, it's recording.
It's a recording. Okay, Parshas Korah. Let's begin. The Torah begins, Vayikach Korah, and Korah took. So Rashi says, Lokach es asmo letzad echad, he put himself to one side of the camp to argue on Moshe, Aaron, the kahuna. Other people say, Lokach, he got a bad deal, because he had nothing to lose. He had everything to lose, nothing to gain. He wasn't going to die from the Miraglim. He was going to go into Eretz Yisrael. He had nothing to gain by everything that was happening. But there's a few things you have to understand. Number one, according to the Midrash, the Midrash says, was Korah rich or poor?
Rich.
Rich. How rich?
Very rich.
Very rich. Very, very rich. Richer than Bill Gates. Yeah. They say, the Midrash says that he had 300 mules just carrying the keys to all the boxes that had all the money. Okay. Korah was very, very rich. So they asked the question, how come he was so rich? In general, Shevet Levi, were they rich or poor?
Poor.
They were poor. Why were they poor? Because how did the Jews get rich in the desert? They either took the stuff from Ephraim or at the Yam Suf. In order to take the spoils of Egypt or the Yam Suf, they had to have been slaves. That means that was the exchange. For all the years that you worked without payment, this is your payment. Shevet Levi didn't work. So they were not allowed to take. Even if they wanted to take, even if their neighbors said, here, take this, they weren't supposed to take it. Right. So in general, Shevet Levi were poor. They did not have the wealth of Egypt. Some people say that's why when the Nisim all brought these golden bowls and everything else for the Mishkan, Shevet Levi didn't bring. Aaron felt bad, but they didn't bring because they couldn't afford it. They didn't have it. They didn't have the wealth to do it. There were three exceptions. 3 people in Shevet Levi were relatively wealthy. One was Moshe. Because Hashem said to Moshe, when you make the second luchos, which was made out of sapphire, you can keep the chips, the sapphire chips. And that was worth a lot of money. People paid a lot of money for those chips. They made jewelry. As a matter of fact, there's a story. I have it over here. There's a story that one day Korach's wife came over to Tzipporah and said to Tzipporah, look at what my husband got me for Mother's Day, or whatever day it was. And showed her a beautiful ring and a beautiful necklace, whatever it was. And Tzipporah was seeing all the jewelry that Korach's wife had. So what did Tzipporah say? Tzipporah said, I have the best jewelry. My husband is my jewelry. My husband is my diamond. Well, that's great. And then she went home and I think she cried probably, but that's what she said. Anyway, the Medrash says that Moshe took some of the sapphire, I guess gave it to Bezalel, and he made beautiful jewelry for her. She had a beautiful necklace and a ring and a bracelet. And of course, Korach's wife couldn't take that. That really blew her away. So Moshe had a certain amount of wealth. The other Levi that had wealth was Aharon. The Gemara says that the Kohen Gadol, the community enriches him. That means in order for the Kohen Gadol to do his job, he didn't have to think about how his family is going to eat or where they're going to take care of. So the Kohen Gadol was a community servant who, when he became Kohen Gadol, had a certain amount of wealth. And the third one was Korah. The Medrash says, how did Korah become so wealthy? Yosef had 3 treasures. One treasure from the people who worshipped idols. That was the money Korah found. One treasure that people took and made money through theft and stealing, and then bought food from Yosef. That was hidden away. Antoninus took that. He was the Roman Caesar who was very friendly with Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. The third treasure was money that was earned legally. Legal money. That Yosef hid for the tzaddikim la'asid lahu. Nobody knows what that treasure is. Okay, nobody, at least up to this point. The problem is, where did Yosef hide this treasure? So according to some opinions, he hid it in Baal Tzafon, when they left Mitzrayim, they went through this area called Baal Tzafon. Tzafon means to hide. When we have on Pesach, the Afikomen is called Tzafun. Tzafun means to hide. And in the mountains, Yosef hid the treasure, Korah found it. The problem is that even though Korah found it, whose money was it? It was Yosef's. Who was it meant for? Bnei Yisrael. So Korah took money that didn't belong to him. It wasn't his money. It was for all the Jewish people. So Korah took the treasure of Yosef. It made him rich. People didn't care because everybody else had money. So they just left him alone. But the truth is it wasn't his money. And in the end, what happened to all his money? It went down and got buried again in the ground, and no one had it. So, when you take things that don't belong to you, it doesn't work out. Now, why did he get so much money? Maybe he davened for the money. He wanted money. All the Baalei Musar, they talk about that it's a bigger challenge to go through life with money than to be poor. It's easier to be poor.
Why?
Because when you have money, you think you can control people, you can buy people. The Yetzer Hara works overtime. That's what the Baalei Musar says. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You'll take your chances, right? Given the choice, if I win the lottery and have $5 million or 10 or $100 million, or I'll be poor, I'll take the $100 million and I'll give tzedakah and I'll take my chances. I won't be the bad person, the Baalei Musar says. Right, whatever it is, you're going to take your chances. Everybody says the same thing. I would say the same thing also. But that's what they seem to say. The Baalei Musar seem to believe that it's a bigger challenge to be poor than to be rich. No, it's a bigger challenge to be rich than to be poor. And everybody says the opposite, but that's not what it is. Money changes you. Money makes you a different person. Money corrupts you. The word domim, money is domim, spells blood also. It seems to destroy families and everything else. Trust me, when people say I'm arguing on principle, not for the money, at the end of the day, what's it always about? The money. It's always about the money. Okay, so Sheva Devi was poor, the Jewish people were rich, Korah was rich, and Korah had everything to live for. He was a Levi, and he carried the Aron and the Kalim of the Mishkan. He was about 130 years old. He wasn't at risk of dying. He wasn't going to die in the desert. He was going to go into Eretz Yisrael. He had no challenge. There were a lot of younger people who knew they were going to die in the desert. So you can say, I'm going to die anyway. I might as well be the Kohen Gadol and try my luck. Korah was not in that. That's why it says Korah took a bad deal because he had everything to lose, nothing to gain. And that's why it says, Korah he was such a smart person. Why was he so foolish? So it says his eyes misled him. He saw in Nevuah that he would have great people coming from him, Shmuel, who would be equal to Moshe and Aaron, and therefore he says, if I'm going to have such children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren that are so wonderful and so great, must be that I'm a good guy, must be that I'm going to win. He didn't know that his children would do teshuvah, which, by the way, is interesting. The Medrash says, how did his children able to do teshuvah? What zchut did they have, his children, that they did teshuvah?
Because they respect the Moshe Rabbeinu.
So they say, that's what they say. It says that Moshe was coming one time. Moshe came one time to Korah. And Korah's children were sitting. And they didn't know what to do. The Chavetz Chaim brings us down. Moshe's coming. Should we stand up for Moshe? After all, he's the Rosh Hashiva, he's the God. On the other hand, if we stand up and show respect to Moshe, maybe we're showing disrespect to our father. And we have a halach of kibbud av. So they didn't know what to do. In the end, what did they do? They stood up. They stood up. Which is interesting. They stood up. So, without being disrespectful to their father, they stood up for Moshe, even though they were disagreeing with Moshe. And therefore, they had a special zchut that allowed, Hashem gave them the special zchut that right before the very end, they had the ability to do teshuvah, and they did teshuvah. And as a consequence, Shmuel Hanavi came from Korah. Okay? So, things happen. But Korah was wealthy, he was smart, he had Ruach HaKodesh, he was a mature person, he was from Shevet Kahas, he carried the Aron. The Medrashim talk about all the wonderful things that he had, and he had everything to live for. On the other hand, he liked to associate himself with troublemakers. That means he needed a group of people to organize his campaign. So he attracted 250 of the greatest minds. That was fantastic. 250 Gedolim he had. But he still needed someone out there to make, these signs, down with Moshe, up with Korah, vote no for Moshe. And who are these people? Our good friends Dasan and Aviram. Now it's interesting. Their families were all lost. When the earth opened up and swallowed them, everybody went down. Dasan, Aviram, mom, dad, children, all their property. Aviram was married and had many children. They were all lost. The Medrash seems to say that Dasan had no children. Now we know that Dasan's wife, Shlomit Bat Ivri, had one child from the Egyptian. Yes. And they kept it secret. But somehow, although this woman got pregnant from the Egyptian, somehow she simply did not have any more children with Dasan. So it's possible that they had more than one wife. It's possible he kept her on as a wife not to embarrass her or the child, but he had nothing to do with her. It's very possible they were married. We say they were married on paper. They were just, they had no relationship. So, it seems, that's what it's hard to see from the Psukim, but it seems that Dasan and Aviram had families. Aviram for sure did, Dasan did not, but they were troublemakers. They had no interest whatsoever in Korach's cause. The one thing that he and Korach had in common was they both did not like Moshe Rabbeinu, or they both did not like Aaron. So, it's interesting. We say politics makes strange bedfellows. They attract very strange type of people. Okay. Now, what was Korach thinking? Let's understand it. How many Kohen Gadol were there going to be in the Jewish people? There was one. Okay. Korach says, I deserve to be the Kohen Gadol. I got it. The 250 Talmidei Chachamim, Zekanim, they also wanted to be Kohen Gadol. So you have 251 people applying for a job that already had someone in the job. Of the 251, only one would be chosen. What would happen to everybody else who tried?
No.
They would die. Would you apply for a job like that? Doesn't sound like very, I wouldn't sell life insurance to these people. What? Well, it was a horrible risk. It was a horrible risk. That means
Russian roulette.
It was Russian roulette, like taking a bullet in a gun with 6 shots and just turning it and doing it. It just seems crazy. So they talk about this. The Arizal and different people talk about it. And it seems those 250 people had I saw this in the Netziv, the Hamed Dover, the Netziv. He says, of these 250 people, they were going to die in the desert, right? The sin of the spies, they were going to die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they were never going to make it into Israel. So their feeling was, if we're going to die anyway, I can die in a grave that I dig in the desert one night, or I can die trying to get closer to Hashem in a fireball.
Which is a suicide mission.
Which is a suicide. We have this concept in America when someone runs towards the police with a gun in their hand, even though it might be a toy gun. It's called suicide by cop. They want the police officer to shoot them. They want to commit suicide. They just don't want to do it themselves, so they get the police to shoot them. And then there's a whole protest, why did the police shoot a guy that's unarmed? You know, it just you can't win. You know, in America you can't win, no matter what it is, politics being what it is. You just can't win. You know, and sometimes that's better than somebody who wants to die and takes a gun and tries to shoot a bunch of innocent people till the police shoot him. This way he has to die with 20 other people. I mean, he wants to die, why take 20 innocent people with you? These people, this is what the Netziv says. They wanted to die close to Hashem. So they all took the Torahs and they all went ahead and acted like the Kohen Gadol for 5 minutes, knowing they didn't have a chance, knowing they were going to die, but they did it l'shem shamayim. At least if I'm going to die, I'm going to die with Hashem taking me and not just laying down on the ground.
Disrespectful.
Right? Which is pretty wild. And it seems that it had an impact. Because the pans, right, the 250 pans, a Elazar had to collect them and string them up and hang them from the Mizbeach. So they were considered Kodesh. What were you going to say, Shlomo? You know what? A person does things to get closer to Hashem. Is it considered a ga'ava? Maybe it's considered a mesiras nefesh. It's just a strange way of going. That means in their mind they were going to die anyway, right? They were going to die. How did they die in the desert? On Tisha B'Av, they dug graves, they laid down, and the next morning, those who were awake got up, and those who were dead, the wind blew and covered them over. So a person says, I have a choice. I can die a boring death, or I can go out, right? Kodesh. In an opportunity to jump into the fire of the Mizbeach, to go up to Shamayim Alayim. We had that when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. It says that the fires were burning, and the young Kohanim took the keys to the door and threw it into the air and says we weren't worthy of the keys. And a hand came down and grabbed the keys. And when they saw that, what did they do? They all jumped into the fire. So, what was that? That was suicide. Are we allowed to commit suicide? The answer is no. But it's just fascinating that the Netziv says that they wanted. Now, Korah wanted the same thing. Korah also wanted to die that fiery death. Didn't happen. What happened to him? The earth opened up and swallowed him up. He never got his wish. Since he started the fight, he was denied the wish. He died like everybody else who fell to the ground and died. He didn't get the fire death.
The 250 died.
The 250 died through the fire. They didn't get swallowed up. Korach, Dosan, and Aviram, they got swallowed up. They lost. Okay? They lost. Okay. So who won? Moshe maybe won a little bit. Aaron maybe won a little bit. What about our good friend, On Ben Pelis?
His wife saved him.
His wife saved him. So first of all, there are a lot of good lessons to learn. You know, there's a lot of good lessons to learn from Parshas Korah. What's the first lesson to learn? For the ladies, what's the first lesson to learn? A good wife saves her husband. But you could be a wife like Korah, who pushes her husband and says to him, so what did Moshe do to you today? How did Moshe embarrass you today? How did Moshe make you less of a man today? So Korach's wife took gasoline and put it on the fire. So it burned brighter and brighter and brighter. She created the machlokas. So she's an example of a bad wife. A wife who looks to create machloket. Moshe Meir Weiss always likes to say that the word machloket spells the word chelek met. It's a piece of death. That means when you fight, nobody wins. You lose some of your life. It cuts your heart out. An example of a good wife was On Ben Pelis' wife. She says to her husband, what are you doing? So he says, I'm supporting Korah. Are you going to go out there? I'm going to go out there. You're going to die. He said, well, someone's going to be chosen. I said, I know. But you have 251 or 252 or 253 to 1 chances. You think you're going to be chosen? No. So what's going to happen to you? You're going to die. I don't want you to die. So what did she do? She gave him...
Wine.
I thought it was vodka. I thought Om Ben Pelas was a Bukhari guy. And she just gave him vodka. Smirnoff, for sure. It must have been good Smirnoff. It must have been ice cold, frozen.
He wasn't Ashkenaz, he was Schnapps
I don't think it was schnapps. I don't know.
with a herring.
Om Ben Pelas. I don't know. Good herring with kichel. No, I don't know. So what did she do? So she gave this guy schnapps or vodka, and he's sleeping. Then when they come to collect him, she decides to comb her hair. She takes off. So they run away, which is strange. Here, Dasan v'Aviram, they care about nothing. The woman's hair is uncovered, they run away the other way. Can't figure these guys out. Dasan v'Aviram, we can't figure out.
Opposite sometimes.
But the Maharami Pano, he's a Kabbalist. And he says something interesting. He says, whatever happened, they talk about Gilgulim. They say Korah was a Gilgul of Cain. Cain opened the ground to take his brother, so the ground opened up to take Korah. I got that. So the Marami Pana says, whatever happened to the wife of On Ben Pelet? So it says her first Gilgul, she came back as Michal, the daughter of Shaul HaMelech. How do we know this? Because Michal saved David HaMelech's life. Shaul was trying to kill him. She covered him over with blankets, whatever it is. So she was a wife who was accustomed to saving her husband. Then the Maram Pano says something shocking. Listen to what he says. He says she uncovered her hair, right? She publicly uncovered her hair. So she needed a tikkun for that. Who was she that got the tikkun? So he says she was Kimches. Kimches was a lady. She had 7 children who were Kohanim Gedolim. The Gemara says, why was she special that she had such a zchut?
She covered her hair even at the
She covered her hair, never even in her own house.
Wall don't see.
The wall never saw. So look at this. Who won in the end? The wife of On Ben Pelet. Because she uncovered her hair. And later she covered her hair. Not only was she the mother of 1 Kohen Gadol, 7 Kohen Gadols. So the one winner in this story, yes, Aaron was still the Kohen Gadol, I got that, and his stick and everything else. And Moshe was still Moshe. But in all the people that gathered together to rebel, and everybody killed and everybody died, the one winner was the wife of On Ben Pelet. She became the mother of 7 children who were all Kohanim Gedolim. And why? Because she never uncovered her hair. That's shocking. That's what the Marami Pano says. Now, I once told you this years ago, the Satmar Rebbe once was giving I guess, when you have a Farbrengen, you have all your Hasidim on a Friday night, they come to the Rebbe's table, thousands upon thousands. So he once gave a speech, and he said that he knows that his neshama has been in this world twice already. And now this is his 3rd time in this world. That's what he said.
If they kill like Satan, what about us?
What about us? That's true. He was a Gilgul for number 3. But you have to understand, now, he says this to a group of a few thousand people. So the people up front, of course, one of them says, I have a question to ask. What's your question? When was the first time you were here? That means you've been here twice already. Tell us the first time you were here and what happened. That means somehow the first time you were here, you didn't make it. What happened? He answered that the first time he was here, he was in the desert, and he was standing right up front when Korah and Moshe were facing off one against the other.
Wow.
So they said to him, so what happened? How come you didn't make it? I mean, you failed. You must have been on Moshe's side. He says, nope, I was not on Moshe's side. You were on Korach's side? He says, no, I was in the middle. I didn't know who was right. So then they said to him, Rabbi, how did you not know who was right? You have Korach, you have Moshe. You were not on Moshe's side? You know, what's going on over here? How did you not know Moshe was right? And the Satmar Rebbe says, you have no idea how smart Korach was. Korach could talk, and like there's a saying, he could sell snow to an Eskimo. He could convince you of anything. He says Korach was a firstborn, a Bechor. All the Bechorim were supposed to be Kohanim. Why were the Bechorim not included? Why were they not Kohanim?
Because
Which sin?
Okay.
The golden calf. Was Shevet Levi involved in the golden calf?
No.
So then Moshe says, but Korach, when Hashem says all firstborns are out, we don't make a difference between this Shevet and that Shevet.
Everybody.
All is all, everybody. Gotcha. Now comes the sin of the spies. Everybody's going to die between the ages of 20 and 60. The Shevet Levi died between the ages of 20 and 60. Why not?
Because there was one part of the
But once we say everybody's going to die, why wasn't Shevet Levi included?
already know.
The answer is because they were never counted together with the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Shevet Levi was always counted separate. So Korach says, oh, so we're not included with everybody. So if we're not included in everybody, I'm a firstborn, what should I be? I should at least be a Kohen.
Yeah.
That's compromise. I don't have to be the Kohen Gadol. But I should at least be a Kohen, because I'm a firstborn. Was he right?
Yes.
Yeah. According to logic,
He was
the
right.
Satmar Rebbe says he was 100% right. And when we were listening to Korach, you know what we all said? He's right. He's 100% right. Moshe could have taken the machloket and solved it in 2 seconds. He could have said, you know what, Korach? You're right. Every Levi who's a Bechor, I'm going to give him a job in the Beit HaMikdash as one of the Kohanim.
Okay.
But it's
Why
not
not?
on Moshe's hands.
What?
He did
Well, it
that.
was not on Moshe's hands, on Hashem's.
Okay, so now, let's think that through. Even if you say it was not in Moshe's hands, it was in Hashem's hands. There were many times Moshe asked Hashem, what do I do in this case? What do I do in this case? Okay? And we had crazy rules, right? Slavchad, the women got a nachalo. Pesach Sheni, whoever heard of that? Did anybody miss Rosh Hashanah and come back a month later and blow shofar? No. How many people light Hanukkah candles in the middle of January or February? Nobody that I know of. And nobody takes a lulav and esrog in November on Thanksgiving, because they missed it on Sukkot. But yet people did crazy things. So Korach was right. So they said to the Satmar Rebbe, if Korach was right, then why was he punished? What was his mistake? And the Satmar Rebbe said, this is what I learned. He says, I didn't know this. This is what I learned. That if the rabbi says something, even if he's wrong, he's right. Because it says in the Torah, Al pi Torah asher yeducha. That means, if a rabbi makes a mistake, you can go over, maybe another rabbi can go over and point it out to him, and he can change his decision. But if he makes a decision, even if he's wrong, but if he's the appointed leader, he's right. And that the Satmar Rebbe says, I never knew. I never knew that Moshe was always right, no matter even if it was wrong. Korach thought it was simply black and white. He says there's no such thing as black and white.
So what was the second rule?
He never said. That was strike one. Strike two, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure if this is like baseball.
What's the
At
Satmar
strike
Rebbe?
three, you're out.
Satmar's name, Rabbi's.
It was Rabbi Teitelbaum.
All the time.
Yeah. So this was a famous story that he said. Now, they bring down the famous story with the Nod of Yehuda. It's not the story. I'm going to tell you tonight a story you can't believe. Trust me, I printed it out because I thought it was such a great story. And at the end, I'm going to tell it to you. You have to stick it out to the end. But they bring down a story, a famous story with the Rabbi Yehuda, that he was once walking home, I guess from Shul in the city of Prague, and there was this little kid, not a Jewish kid, a non-Jewish kid, who was crying. He was crying. And the Rabbi Yehuda was also a young person at the time, said to the little kid, "Why are you crying?" So the kid says that my mommy gave me some pennies to buy bread, and some stepmom or something, and some thieves, hooligans knocked me down and took my money. And now I have no money for bread, and I'm afraid if I go home, my stepmom will beat me. So this Rabbi Yehuda, at that time was still also a little kid, gave him some pennies, and said, "Here, buy yourself some bread." Okay. Fast forward about 20, 30 years, it's Pesach time, and the Rabbi Yehuda is in his, the chief rabbi of Prague, and he gets a knock from an officer at the door, a royal officer, and he says, "I need to speak to the rabbi." He speaks to the rabbi. He says, "There's a plot that right after Pesach, when all the Jews buy bread, they're going to put poison in the bread." So, and he said, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm the kid you helped with those few pennies. You saved my life with some pennies to buy bread, and I'm going to save your life with bread also." Famous story with the Rabbi Yehuda. So the Rabbi Yehuda got up on Shabbos, and he said to the community, "We made a mistake on the calendar. Pesach does not end Monday night, it ends Tuesday night.
Don't buy bread. Don't buy bread.
Don't buy bread." So you can't buy bread on
Pesach.
You can't buy bread Monday night, Tuesday, because it's still Pesach. Okay? So now they put all this poison in the bread. Of course, none of the Jews went ahead and bought bread. And then the plot was found out, and they tested, people died, and the poisoners got arrested. And that's how the Rabbi Yehuda saved his community. It's a famous story. What is the shocking lesson of the story? Listen to what people say is the shocking lesson. That the rabbi got up and said they made a mistake on the calendar, and everybody believed him.
Yes.
Because today, if a rabbi gets up and says, "Oh, the calendar is wrong," what would happen?
They stoned him.
They would stone him. You don't know what he's talking about. I'm not going to listen to this rabbi. Pesach, an extra day? Not happening.
I want a bread.
Yeah.
I want a
Throw
bread
all the
today.
tomatoes.
Yeah, whatever it is. That means they say that the biggest lesson of the story is that they actually listened to what the rabbi said. They believed him. Nobody believes the rabbi today. They have no credibility. That was the shock of the shocks.
Come on,
You know.
we want a bread today.
Yeah, we want our bread. We want to do what we want. So I mean, that's really what it was. Now, it's interesting. The Medrash says, why were the firstborns holy in the first place? What did they do special? Actually, they did nothing. In Egypt, when every firstborn Egyptian died, what happened to the firstborn of the Jewish people? Nothing. All they did was not die. Because they didn't die, they created a Kiddush Hashem. When you're involved in creating a Kiddush Hashem, you become holy. That's what they did. The firstborns did nothing. All they did was not die. That's what made them holy. Korah saw that he was going to have Shmuel Hanavi. You know why he had Shmuel Hanavi? Because he created a Kiddush Hashem. What was the Kiddush Hashem? He died. So he thought, because he had Shmuel Hanavi, he was going to live. He didn't realize. He only had Shmuel Hanavi because he died.
Opposite.
It was the opposite. You want to create a Kiddush Hashem. The problem is the Kiddush Hashem saved him, but it doesn't help him when it cost him his life in the process. And yet,
Is that considered Kiddush Hashem when you're going against the Rabbi?
no, it's a Kiddush Hashem that he got punished, and everybody saw that when you go against Moshe, you lost. So in a strange way, the Torah and Moshe gained respect from Korach's sacrifice. It was a backhanded Chilul Hashem, Kiddush Hashem in the process. And that's really what it was. Yet the people still were not satisfied. All of that did not mean that Aaron was the man. So what does Moshe say? Everybody has a stick. I guess in those days everybody had a walking stick. So they were going to everybody brought their sticks. And Moshe put the sticks inside the Mishkan. And he says, tomorrow we'll see what happens. What happens? Aaron's stick blossoms, buds, almonds, etc., etc. Everybody now saw that Aaron's stick was chosen. What does everybody do with their stick? They take it back, right? It says that everybody took their stick. So they asked the question, your stick didn't work. So why are you taking it back? That means, so in some ways it says that the fact that your stick was even there in the first place shows a certain Kedusha holiness. And sometimes, even when you lose, depending on your attitude, you win. So they took the stick to remind themselves, I tried. I may not have succeeded, but sometimes the person who doesn't try is the one who fails.
Yes.
The person who tries and doesn't succeed still tried. What do they do with Aaron's stick afterwards? They put it back. Some people say they should have left it out so everybody could see it. But you know what happens when you see something every single day? After a while, you lose interest in it. You don't notice it. By putting it back into on top of the Aron, I guess it was near the Aron, so it was hidden from sight. So once in a while, they took it out to show people, and that's how they knew that Aaron was meant to be the Kohen Gadol. It shows value. It shows that when something is hidden away, that's what Reb Zalman Sorotzkin says, it shows value. It shows a little bit of what it is. Also, he brings down a story here of Mordechai Kamenetsky. He says that in the 1960s, at the height of the Cold War between President Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev, they were always, facing each other off, challenging each other. So I think at one particular moment, President Kennedy said to Khrushchev, do you ever admit a mistake? And Khrushchev said, yes. Just before the 20th Congress, I got up and I admitted all of Stalin's mistakes.
Not much.
Of course that is. Did you ever admit a mistake? Yes. It's like Trump. Did you ever admit a mistake? Yeah. The Democrats, it's all their fault. I admit a mistake all the time. He says that's what the purpose of the stick was, that it is what it is. It talks about that over and over again. It talks about Korah made a bad deal. Someone asked, what is the symbol of a good deal? What's considered a good deal? So a good deal is when you teach someone Torah. You know why? Because if I teach you Torah, see, for example, if I have a diamond, and I sell you the diamond, so you get the diamond, I make the money. I could lose the money, and the diamond could be worth a lot more the next week or so. So that's necessarily a good deal. But if I teach you Torah, I don't lose the Torah, right? Just because I taught it to you, I didn't lose it. If anything, maybe I've gotten to know it better and better and better. And you gained. That's called a good deal, a mekach tov. Now, have you heard of this organization called V'hadev No? When we do Birkat HaTorah in the morning, right? We say V'hadev No, Hashem Elokeinu, right? So if you Google Harev No, there's a song. I think it's Baruch Leiner, and there's another singer, Shweki maybe, whatever it is. They wrote a song for this organization called Harev No. Now, it's a fascinating organization. This is what they did. The song begins with little kids who are getting their haircut for the first time. So what do? You take these 3-year-old children, and you usually bring them to the yeshiva, and they put an olive base, and they have honey, and this and that, and Torah is sweet, right? And the idea is that these kids one day will go to the yeshiva. Then the camera shows some of these kids who are now 13, 14, and 15, and they can't handle a full day of learning. They're doodling on their notebooks, and they're falling asleep at the Gemara. They're just not able to sit and learn from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. They just can't do it. So this, I forgot who it was, this rabbi started this organization called Vaharevno. What he does is, he takes these guys who just simply can't sit and learn all day. And together they learn maybe one Masechta, Rosh Hashanah. And they know that Masechta well. And what do they do after that? They chazor, they keep repeating it. It says one kid made a siyum on Rosh Hashanah 51 times already. Like, wow. But because they know it, and it's easy for them, so that you see them now in the Beis Medrash going over it, reviewing it. And they don't even realize, but within a short amount of time, they've been there 3 hours already. And then they maybe learn a second Masechta. And they talk about how once they do this, they're not trying to finish all of Shas. They're just focusing on a small little bite. But because they're good at it, and they know it well, and it's easy for them, they feel accomplished. And when you feel accomplished, you can accomplish the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And he says it has saved, this organization, Vaharevno, has saved the neshamos of kids who have fallen off to the wayside. Because many schools, they want perfect children. They want you to fit into a small little box. If you don't fit into that small little box, this is not the school for you. Maybe you should think something else. Education has taken a beating in many ways. So you should do this. Vaharevno. It's a beautiful song that they wrote for the seal, and it's an organization that does what it can to save all these Jewish kids. And it's doing tremendous, tremendous things. Okay, I want to share with you a story. Listen to this story. And it's already 9:20, maybe we'll end with a story, because the story has a great lesson to it as well. Okay? And there's a lot of lessons. I spoke at a yard site this week. I said that, first of all, from Korah, we see the price of machloket. And from Korah, we see how women make up the house and can save the husband. And then, by Mincha time, we read Parshas Chukas. What is the difference from Korah to Chukas in years? In years. According to history, Parshas Chukas happened how many days or weeks or months or years after
Before our
Korah?
sin.
40 years later. Because in Parshas Chukas, we already have the death of Miriam and the death of Aaron, which was at the end of the 40 years. So imagine, at Shacharit you're reading Korah. By Mincha you're reading Chukas. You have just aged 40 years of history.
Finish.
And I says, we learn from this how fast life passes us by. That means you think you have all the years in the world, and you blink your eye, and all of a sudden you're 40 years old. And you think about all the things you could have done. So I said there were a lot of lessons that we could learn at a yard site between Parshas Korach and Parshas Chukas. That was my speech that I gave. Okay, listen to this story. In Bnei Brak, right after Rosh Hashanah, there's a bus stop to Yerushalayim and many other places, and people were gathering at this bus stop to get a bus to Yerushalayim. The bus to Yerushalayim is number 402. If you've ever been to Israel, it's bus number 402, it's the express to Yerushalayim, and there must have been 40 or 50 people at this bus stop. Anyway, a bus is coming. You see in the distance an Egged bus is coming. Everybody gets excited. A bus, finally a bus. It's after Rosh Hashanah. The people are tired. They want to get to Yerushalayim. And the bus pulls up, and the number on top is 318, Rehovot. And the bus driver opens the door. Anybody for Rehovot? An empty bus. Anybody for Rehovot? And of course, nobody's for Rehovot because there are many buses that stop there, but everybody that's there is waiting for the 402 to Yerushalayim. So one of the older people, one of the Rabbanim, comes up to the door of the bus driver and he says, Nahag, bus driver, nobody's here for the Rehovot. We're all here for Yerushalayim. We have a full bus for Yerushalayim. Please take us to Yerushalayim. We'll pay the Yerushalayim fare. Please take us to Yerushalayim. The bus driver says, Kavod harav, Adon, sir, I'm an Egged bus driver. My route is route number 318 to Rehovot. You know, it's like going to take a Queens bus, it's a Q37, and he wants it to take you into Manhattan. Q37s don't go into Manhattan. I'm not going to Yerushalayim. I'm a bus to Rehovot. I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm going to go to my next stop. But the guy, no, you can't. There are older people here that have been standing for a while, and it's after the Chag, and people are exhausted. There are mothers here with small children. Have a heart. You've got to take us to Yerushalayim. He says, but I'm a bus 318 to Rehovot. You know, no, please. Bus driver says for a minute. He says, okay, I'll do it. And he gets up and he opens the thing and he changes the number to 402 to Yerushalayim, and people come up and they're ecstatic. First guy comes up and says, oh, you're a tzaddik, Hashem should bless you. The next guy says, Hashem should give you mazal, tzlocha, and bracha. Third person says, you should have wonderful children, you should have grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. What?
To Rabbi.
To the driver. You know, everybody coming on the bus, you know, he was going to Rehovot, now he's going to Yerushalayim, he's taking them all, they don't have to wait for a bus. They're all getting fine, they were standing the whole time, they could sit down. One after the other, gave this guy such brachot, I'm telling you, it was wild. Okay, he's driving on his way to Yerushalayim. Someone comes over to him, one of the passengers, he says, Nah, can I ask you a question? He says, sure. He says, you're just a bus driver. You were supposed to go to Rehovot. You went now and you're taking us all to Yerushalayim. I really appreciate that, you're wonderful. But you and I both know that when you get back, you're going to lose your job. You're going to get fired. You just can't change the route. Imagine you're a Q10 bus going to Kennedy Airport and now you're on your way to Manhattan because a bunch of people got on the bus and said, take us to Manhattan. You can't do that. Imagine you're an E train or an F train and you're going to go on the A train line. You know, you just can't do that. Was it worth it? Seriously, I just want to know. I want to understand. I'm thankful that you did it. Was it worth it? So the bus driver laughs. He says, okay, let me tell you the story. These new bus stops have cameras.
Is what?
Cameras.
Uh-huh.
I was at the bus depot with a bunch of my friends, and the supervisor came in and says, we have about 50 people by the bus stop going to Yerushalayim. I need a volunteer to take a bus to Yerushalayim. So my friends all said, no, I'm not going to do it. He says, why not? He says, oh, these Hasidic Jews, you take them on the bus, they're tired after the Chag, and the bus jumps or the bus goes too fast or too slow, they're going to curse you, and I don't want to get cursed right now as the Rosh Hashanah is over. I don't want 50 Hasidic Jews cursing me. And one after the other said, no, I'm not going to do it. I got up and I said, I'm going to do it. So they says, okay, but be ready for the worst year of your life because you're going to have 50 religious Jews cursing you. He says, nope, I have a plan. I bet you I can get them all to give me brachot, not curses.
So he
And he made a bet.
So he played the game.
What did he do? He changed the number to 318 Rehovot. Now they begged him to take him to Yerushalayim. So when you normally go on a bus, you think the bus driver is working for you. So if he doesn't treat you the right way, you curse him. But now when these people were getting on the bus, they felt that they were working for the bus driver.
He did a favor.
He did them the favor. So they gave him what? Brachot. Brilliant. So he says, I'm not going to lose my job. I was supposed to drive bus 402 to Yerushalayim. That was my job. I changed the numbers to get the brachot and not the curses.
Did it count because he tricked? It counts as a bracha.
Listen, a bracha is a bracha. No matter how you look at it, every person, and it's such an interesting thing. Talk about marriage. If a guy goes into marriage thinking, my wife works for me, he'll never be happy. But if he goes into the marriage thinking, I have to work for my wife, he'll get bracha. And the wife the same way. That means in life, we call that in English entitlement. If I think I'm entitled, Magia li, I deserve it, I'll never be happy. Because if you don't service me the way I want, I'll curse you under my breath. But if I walk in thinking I don't deserve anything, if anything, you're doing me the favors, then no matter what happens, I will get the bracha. That's how smart this bus driver was. And believe it or not, 50 people got on that bus, and 50 people gave him brachot.
Until the end of the trip.
Until the end of the trip. When they all found out the truth.
Every jump and
Every jump they says,
think.
but Baruch Hashem, we're on a bus going through Shalayim, we're not still standing there. No matter what happened. It is so brilliant that he can't believe it. This is not my story. Daniel Stam printed this out and sent it out in one of his things. He says that he found it written by Rabbi Rachamiel Milstein from Eish HaTorah. So I guess Eish.com, Eish HaTorah, Rabbi Yechiel Milstein wrote the story up. A story that can only happen in Israel, he said. And that's what he wrote down. So Daniel Stam, Rabbi Stam sent this out on Friday or Thursday. So I printed it out. I think it's a great story. I'll use it for Sheva Brachot. It's a story that I'm going to get a lot of mileage under. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.